right, so we're going into our news segment right now, and so that we can have everybody join us here on YouTube and Facebook, I wanted to bring this up, and it's actually a thought that's going on. It's actually going along with some things that we've been talking about at our congregation, and didn't get to talk about it yesterday much or on Shabbat much, but it really relates to something that was said over in Ezekiel chapter 14, which talks about that when it's Ezekiel 14:13. I'll get it out. And it says, "Son of man, if a country sins against me by committing unfaithfulness, and I stretch out my hand against it, destroy its supply of bread, send famine against it, and cut off from it both man and beast. Even though these three men, Noah, Daniel, and Job, are in their midst, by their own righteousness, they could only deliver themselves, declares Yahweh." So that parallels with Revelation, in the book of Revelation, where it talks about in the fourth seal, where it talks about in Revelation 6:8, and I looked, and behold, an ashen horse, or a green horse, and he who sat on it had the name of Death, and Hades was following with him. Authority was given to them over a fourth of the earth to kill with sword, and with famine, with pestilence, and by the wild beasts of the earth. And we're living in a time where we're seeing all of these different things that are taking place. Well, this article showed up over at strangesounds.org. Just wanted to bring this out because it's not just the article itself, but it's more a bigger expanse of the thing than what this article is talking about. But the things that we're considering of where we are in the timeline, the prophetic timeline of things. And to avoid this one subject of this one thing that came out of the nation of China earlier. And this has to do with new mystery diseases and other dangerous pestilences are erupting around the world to trigger the next pandemic. And so this one says new dangerous diseases for the next global pandemic. So is acute flaccid myelitis, and this came from a science source. And it says, did you hear about the outbreak of the new mystery disease in Tanzania? What about the alarming new Ebola outbreak in Congo and the new developments in South Africa and the UK that are making headlines around the world? And despite all the advanced technology, humanity remains extremely vulnerable to outbreak of disease. And they thought the thing that we dealt with this last year was just the beginning. So fearsome new bugs are constantly being cooked up in the labs all over the planet, and it's inevitable that there are going to be more accidents that result in more of these bugs getting released for the future. So what is this? Because the concern is how is it going to affect populations? Is it going to wipe out a lot of different people? Does it fit the pattern of Revelation? Is it the thing that Ezekiel is talking about because of the things going on within a nation itself, or is it more sinister? But this mysterious illness in Tanzania is about. Let me scroll down here. A mystery illness that causes patients to vomit blood has killed at least 15 in Tanzania, officials said. More than 50 people have been hospitalized in the south of the country due to the unidentified condition, which also causes nausea in sufferers. Authorities in Tanzania do not know what is causing people to vomit blood and drop dead, but they did suspend the doctor that first reported this outbreak for causing panic. And moving on, at this point, officials are insisting that there will be not be a wider outbreak, but of course, Tanzania would also have us believe that the thing that happened last year did not exist in their country, when there is a tremendous amount of evidence to the contrary. So, and then there's over in the Congo, there's a new Ebola outbreak, and it says this is causing a tremendous amount of concern, where health officials in Congo confirmed another Ebola outbreak in the country's east on Sunday, the fourth in less than 3 years. On February 3rd, a woman died in Butembo, a town in North Kivu province. And it says the woman from the nearby village of Biena felt sick for a few days, but before being tested in a clinic there, she then went to a hospital at Butembo, and she died before receiving the results. And now they're trying to track everybody down that she might have had contact with, as to try to eradicate the epidemic as soon as possible.
Wow.
So I wanted to bring these things to our attention this morning and talk about these other risks that are coming, that are spoken about prophetically, and what do we do as a people to prepare ourselves, both mentally, spiritually, physically? What are we learning from the things that have happened in the past, and what do we do to stay on top of this? So I want to bring back on Mr. Fealty and Eddie and Tammy and Sandy. Let me get your thoughts. Eddie and Tammy, what are your thoughts on this?
Run. No.
run very fast. Run quickly.
Run. I sent a video to everybody this morning from a lady in Texas, and she's in the middle of the fight, if you will, in Dallas, and she describes explicitly what's going on, and from her perspective, and what she's saying is, they are trying to kill us. She's very clear about it, and she wanted this message broadcasted far and wide, and she backs it up with what we've seen happen throughout the state of Texas. She stated that there was targeted brownouts. They were selectively turning off electricity and turning it off for days. She said people are dying here, and
the link is in the chat.
Is it okay? Thank you, Mark. And her warning is right on. Tammy and I both marveled that it was still up there, that we were able to watch it. But what she chronicles is, she says, the mainstream news media is not going to tell you what's going on. And what you just described are all planned and targeted for release to accomplish their goals of population reduction. It's an insanity. You can't even describe it. What they're doing to all of us, if we're not being hit with atmospherics. I hope I said it right. We're being, they're releasing all kinds of things and now we've got this polar vortex that's targeted. My dear friend in Mount Nebo said this morning, he's of the opinion that we're going to be recipients, as Texas was for this one. They're going to slide it over and bring it all the way down into Florida, where we're going to experience the minuses. And I was trying to warn my sister to make preparations for this, because her well pump's out here. And I said, when you've got temperatures like that sustained for several days, it freezes and just blows up everything. Your house. Go ahead, sis.
Oh, I just said we had it a week. So.
Yeah. I was going to ask you guys, how have y'all dealt with this, and how have you suffered long periods without power?
I think the Panhandle was always hours. You'd lose power maybe multiple times, but it would be for hours, because we're on a different grid. But the rest of Texas, it was days and days. Yeah. We were blessed.
Yeah.
Here, they just did it to us hours at a time. So
isn't that grid? Isn't the grid that you're talking, the other grid you're talking about, kind of a new electrical system that they've had in Texas for only a short amount of time?
Yes. Yeah. So what's happened is, and this is how it's worked out, is that Texas has always been energy independent.
And we still should be.
And so we've had our own grid. But what happened during the 8 years of the Obama administration is this is basically what happened. They shut down the coal plants. And they said, because they said, if you extend so much, well, basically, here's the quote. This is from the prior president, is that we're going to make it so cost inhibitive that it's going to be so expensive, we're going to run you out of business. So you might as well start changing your energy plans now. So they shut down over 100, I think it was like 120 coal plants. And then they started setting up all these wind farms. And the wind farms is not what was able to sustain or continue because of all the freezes. They froze up. They got,
which they're a joke anyway. But
yeah. So we shifted, and then you lose power from the transmission of those lines. So a lot of those wind farms up here in the Texas Panhandle, because it's the windiest part of the state, it's actually one of the windiest parts of the nation. And they because of all this, they couldn't get the energy downstate because you just lose so much power going down.
But that's not the big part of what happened, though.
No, I'm just giving the scenario. So we lost power there. Well, they had also transitioned from coal burning plants. And by the way, coal, when they were burning them here in Texas, very clean. The only thing they were so filtered out, they're very, very clean. And so they had shut those down. They switched over to natural gas. Well, natural gas, those freeze up in the cold.
Yes.
And so they actually had to move in some diesel generators.
Let's go to what actually happened.
Okay, I'm giving the bigger picture. They shut down nuclear plants because they didn't, quote, winterize them. And so now we're at a strain. And so this is what there was a executive order on day one of the Biden administration.
The executive order is what's done it.
And said that, it put certain restraints and constrictions on the energy usage in this nation. And so what they told, and then there was a letter that came out from the Department of Energy that said, you're only allowed to use so much energy. We know this thing is coming, but you're going to have to get your energy from other states first before because there's caps on how much energy each place can produce, because if it goes over the certain level of pollutants or carbon or CO2 emissions or anything like that, you've got to get it from other sources first before we allow you to raise the ceiling, because if you go above that, you're going to be fined.
You can't get the energy from your own state.
So we had to import, and so when we started to import, that caused the rates start to go up dramatically.
Well, no, they said that the rates don't go up because they make them. They said they were going to raise rates, at least in Texas, to the highest they could possibly give them, and they will not go back down. And that means households will be getting a $10,000 bill for electricity for this month.
So
we can't pay that.
The whole point is to weaken the resolve of the American people, especially when this is not a Biden state. I mean, even though this is a
careful
state.
A little careful there.
Yeah.
We understand.
Okay. So there, part of it's control. Part of it is to ration electricity, to get people into the mindset that we're going to have to ration electricity, to change the way we use energy because of all of this green stuff that's going on. And I'm trying to limit my words. So
hard to do, isn't it?
so when they're rationing energy, but the whole thing is that because of these executive orders, the state of Texas had to give the control of our power grid over to a company called ERCOT. And ERCOT is the prior, used to be known as Imran. And what Imran did back in the 90s is they started doing this in California, where they said, oh, you're using too much energy. We're going to have to ration it. We're going to have rolling blackouts and brownouts and all these type of things. And that's what caught up in the whole Imran controversy of the 90s. And well, now ERCOT is a descendant of Imran, and now they're doing it to Texas.
All I can say is, why would Texas, when we are on our own energy, ever go, oh, yeah, let's do that? That is some stupidity must have hit our leadership's head. I'd say, you think you want my power? Try to come and get it.
So
that's what I would have said.
They want Texas not to be so energy independent. They want it to be interrelated. And so that because it's a matter of control. It's a matter because
they don't want us to succeed.
And there have been talks that way, but anyway, that's kind of the big picture.
Absolutely.
The world is changing. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I want to say that I'm very thankful and happy to see both of your beautiful smiling faces this morning, because what we've seen and what that precious woman, now I know Bob came in the room a little bit late. I don't know if he saw that link, Mark, that you posted, but the warning that this woman gives, we had all better heed.
Yeah.
We better listen to her, because she is 100% right, because it's coming to your town. None of us will be left out. They are coming after every single one of us. And going back to your original statement about the bugs, that's part of the plan. You know, that is part of the plan. So, and what do? We obey Jeremiah 51:45 and Revelations 18:4. We get out of Dodge.
Yeah. Right.
I love the old wagon train. Excuse me, Mark. I love the old wagon train intro. Da 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 da. And you have the picture of the, you know, in the early days, all they had was the picture of the, you know, the non-motion wagon train, you know, going in the sunset. And then they got live. There you go, brother. Then they got real, and they had, you know, an actual wagon train going on, and you see the men walking by the wagons, you know. And every time I see that, hear that music, I think of the coming second Exodus. Amen.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to have to do. That's part of my plan anyway.
Yeah.
So there you have it.
That's right. You know, we're sitting at this time where we've got so many things that are being set up. So for us to actually recognize, and when we want to put a big picture on all of this, what were the things that happened that prepared the people to get ready to leave Egypt? There were plagues. There were plagues. Right. And so
they were first tax masters. Yeah. First.
Yeah, they were taxed first. That's right. And what are we seeing? You know, we're seeing that, and the threat of taxes and all that. But then there was the tax masters and taskmasters both. And then, but right now, what do we see? We do see the pestilences. We see the rationing. We see all of these elements of control. But we see them, if we look at them in the perspective of Exodus, we see them as plagues, you know, and we say, well, man's behind this and not God. But in reality, when you look at the big picture of the thing is, plagues are still plagues.
Absolutely.
Plagues are still plagues. And a lot of people say, well, that's man-made, so it can't be. I would beg to differ, because plagues are still plagues.
Right.
And we have to really consider those things.
The magicians in Egypt did a lot of the same things that Moses did. And really all he did was compound, all the magicians did was compound the plague.
The misery.
They made it worse.
Yeah. And there's one other thing that I want to mention. And I saw a video of this before this polar vortex came down into Texas, and it had to do with the weather patterns. And they showed the jet stream around the Antarctic, and how it was. There's a jet stream. There's a basic one around the Arctic and around the Antarctic, and it was unbroken going around the Antarctica. And what's it do? It works. That jet stream works to keep the cold air separated from the warmer air. Well, in the north, I don't know if you all saw this, but the jet stream was broken up into segments. And when it was broken into segments, it creates a doorway and an opening so that the cold air could break through that opening and then push far south.
How did the jet stream break?
And so that's the next question. How did it break? There's many thoughts out there. Many thoughts are out there. But yeah, Eddie, what are your thoughts on it?
I'm allowed to say. We know about the
Haling conveyor.
Well, no, that's the thermohaline conveyors out in the Atlantic. But we know that it was engineered and structured. And it goes back to what the enemies have stated that they're going to do. They're going to kill us all. That's what they're going to do. And they're using every means at their disposal. Mm-hmm. And that's why my friend up in Nebo, North Carolina, above Marion, precious brother, very brilliant, well-studied, made the statement this morning that he said we're going to have many more of these vortexes before we see the spring set in and temperatures moderate. And he said, he said, there at the Tennessee, North Carolina mountains, he said, that's where the cold stopped. And he says, you go into the Tennessee border, he says, it's bitter cold. And for my mountain brother to use the term bitter, he means bitter. And he says, we're going to see these same things, shift now farther to the southeast, where I believe we here in Florida will experience the temperatures that you guys have on this next post, because they can moderate it, they can move it and target it.
Mm-hmm.
They might blanket Texas. I hope and pray to God they don't hit Texas again with it like you guys have suffered. And I'm not looking forward to it, but I think they're going to move it over and envelop the whole southeast.
Well, we need to pray that our governors, especially our conservative governors, have a plan and that they walk in supernatural wisdom to deal with this. And
absolutely,
because it's. I mean, if there's anything we did, we've learned a few things from what's just happened, and hopefully those things can be brought forth to the other people too, because we know these things are planned. We know that they're doing them. Yeah. But everybody needs to wake up. Wake up, people.
Let me ask you guys, are your stores empty in Amarillo? Are your grocery stores completely out like they're shown in Houston?
They're well, it's lacking a lot.
Let me give you an example. There's a lot. We were not affected in our grocery stores as much as other places. It seems like there's still things,
but there was a lot of lack of some things.
Like, for example, I did go even last night. Most of the bread is wiped out.
There's no bread
at the grocery store that I went to, and so. There's other places it was like produce was full.
Did you look for toilet paper? I'm joking.
I didn't look for toilet paper. But Amarillo is a little bit different and not quite as affected. The downstate where they had a foot of ice as opposed to what we had was snow, but they had ice downstate and they're just not prepared at all for it.
Snow in Galveston at the beach? I mean, snow at the beach.
We have snow plows and we have and they spray our roads and they do all that sort of stuff because we're prepared. We're used to that. We do
get snow.
And because we do get it, but they just don't have it down there. So the only thing they can do is wait it out. And usually they don't have to wait very long. But down there, this is what was affected. Not only did the pipes freeze, not only did they didn't have power to run the pumps to get water into the to keep the water pressure up, but they also couldn't get trucks to the stores. They couldn't get trucks to the gas pumps. They couldn't even run the gas pumps because there's no power. I mean, people had generators, but they didn't have a way to fuel those generators. And it was rough. People's toilet bowls were freezing in their homes.
What was it? A gentleman they found him. Him and his wife, he had passed. He was in the recliner next to his wife, and his wife was almost gone when they got to him. Yeah, and they were in their home with no heat, and they were wrapped up in blankets. Mm-hmm. Tammy said maybe they should have come together because two bodies can produce, more heat than sleeping in separate chairs. But
little spooning needed to happen.
And in that video, you're going to hear that lady say that when they send the search teams around, she says it won't be announced you won't hear it on the main spring news meeting, but there's going to be a whole lot more people that have passed and have been killed by this terrible storm that afflicted Texas for this entire week.
Yeah. Yep. And this is really important as well. They were running dry on their water supplies because people have their pipes running, the faucets running. But if you guys get hit down there in Florida, you've got to make sure you've got your faucets dripping, specifically your hot water, because a lot of times those water heaters are like set up in the garage or on an outside wall or something like that. And those pipes freeze, and that's where the water breaks have been in the freezing pipes. Now there's some of it has to do with the outside water faucets, but it's the hot water that you really got to make sure is dripping. So there's something going into that tank and out of the tank all the time.
Right. I would like to know if anyone had propane heat, i.e. their own tank, not natural gas piped in via a communal system. But if they had propane heat, propane tanks and propane heaters, and if that survived this cold temperature, were they able to maintain their heaters in this extreme cold? Because we have an ample supply of propane at our North Carolina residence, enough that can take us through the entire winter. We do not rely on Duke Energy to keep us heated.
Mm-hmm.
And so we converted our fireplace to a gas fireplace because I'm not good with a chainsaw. My dear brother in Nebo, you should see his wood supply. It's staggering. But we absolutely was adamant about having a propane heat as a backup. That's our go-to survival mode in this extreme cold. And I was wondering, did it get so cold that the propane froze?
Yeah,
you know?
Good question. I have not heard that, but we did not have a break in our supply for the natural gas, but they were having supply issues because those natural gas engines, motors, pumps, whatever, they were freezing up. They're only good for, they're difficult to keep running once it gets down into the 20s. Let me just put it that way.
You're absolutely right. So you have piped in. Do you have piped in natural gas?
Yes.
Is that a fireplace behind you?
Yes.
And you've had it all the time. You didn't suffer any loss of it.
No, we were using it.
Yeah, we were good.
Yeah. Hallelujah. You don't know how we've been praying and saying, "How's John and Sandy? How's our brother in Amarillo?" You know.
A lot of our pets, even, they would gather around the fireplace during, because we were at a -12, -13 before wind chill. So
people don't understand how totally catastrophic those temperatures can be over a sustained period of time.
Yeah,
over 24 hours.
Especially when you're not used to it, because I was in Alaska for 7.5 years, and we had those kind of temperatures all the time, and it didn't bother anybody. It didn't seem to hurt anything. But if you're not used to it and you don't know how to handle it, that is where the problem lies.
Right.
And that's where people get in trouble.
And we believe that very same thing is going to come again before we get into summer. And there's another thing, prepare for it. I've told my sister, I said, you need to cover your pump. You need to get it so that you can heat your house without electricity, and do the preparations that you would have made, what Texas should have made, because no one in Houston would have ever dreamed of temperatures to that extreme.
No.
Am I correct in that? You know, there's absolutely no way. But when you have those that can bring those temperatures and do it on purpose, we all have to take it as a warning and prepare accordingly.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have enough food on hand to last for an extended period of time, I highly recommend you start immediately.
Yeah.
You know,
food,
water, shelter, and all that other good stuff, you know?
Yeah. That's exactly right. So things to prepare for and to be ready for, and just understand that these are, we may get upset with what's happening with the government and all that sort of thing, but understand these are plagues, and they're shaking our world. They're rocking our world right now.
May I bring to everyone's attention something that Abba revealed to me a couple of Sabbaths ago when the rabbi of the congregation I came in tour with read Netzavim, and he was tying it in with his sermon. And I saw something that I had never seen before, because Netzavim is the one read before Sukkot, and we're all getting ready and excited about the 8-day party with the Father, right? We're going to have a great time. We're excited about saying our Mishpachah. We're putting up sukkahs, getting our tents all set up. It's an exciting time. But there's a section of Netzavim that I had not paid attention to. It begins in verse 22 of chapter 29. I want to read this first verse, and it's so incredible. It says, "So that generation to come of your children that shall rise up after you, and the stranger that shall come from a far land shall say, when they see the plagues of that land, John, that's exactly what you said, plagues in your intro about news, and the sicknesses which Yahweh hath laid upon it. And it goes on, and that whole land thereof is brimstone and salt and burning. And it is not sown, nor beareth any grass, nor does any grass grow therein, like the overthrow. And it's interesting, Moses mentioned all 4 cities. He didn't just say Sodom and Gomorrah. He says Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim, which the Lord overthrew in his anger and in his wrath. Now, this you can go right into John with this in Revelations on this particular verse. It says, even all nations shall say, wherefore hath the Lord done this unto this land? What meaneth the heat of this great anger? And I've looked at that and said, oh my God, of whom is Moses talking about? This is not the land of Israel, my precious friends, because the land of Israel is not going to become like Sodom and Gomorrah, where no grass will be grown, and it's going to be fire and brimstone and the heat of this great anger, you know. So ask yourself the question. I've got an answer. I'm not going to say it right now. What I believe, what I am convicted of, but I had never seen that in this incredible Torah portion. I love Netzavim. That's the one. Hey, come on, we're gonna get to Sukkot. Come on, let's go. You know, Netzavim, man, we're standing there with Moses and company. You know, but Moses actually prophesied the destruction of a nation in the future that I'd really never paid much attention to, and I realized that I see things that John the Beloved actually quotes out of this Torah portion, and it kind of says, "Whoa!" And what have we seen? We have seen plagues of that land and sicknesses which Almighty Yahweh hath laid upon it. Is that not what we're going through? Wow. Yeah. Something to think about. Just take a look, an extra look from verse 22 of 29 to the end of the chapter.
It's Deuteronomy. Right?
Deuteronomy, all the way down to 28. And then, of course, 29 is the famous, the secret things belong unto Yahweh, our Elohim. But those things which are revealed belong unto us and to our children forever, that they may do all the words of this Torah. I've never heard a single person speak a message on those verses from 22 to 28. Anybody game? Anybody heard anybody speak and Moses address that? I haven't heard any Jewish sages commentary on it. You know, any rabbis or preachers or anybody address that section of Netzavim, and it's one of the most bone-chilling prophecies that I think Moses ever spoke, and it's from Moses. Mm-hmm. I mean, Moses.
Yeah.
Amen. I just want to point that out in case anybody missed it, because it really blew me away. I said, I never really paid any attention to this. Baruch Hashem. So now that I made everybody happy and glad.
But when we look at all these different things that are happening, and I've mentioned this before to our congregation, is that we are very happy living in our heated homes, our central air conditioning, our indoor plumbing. We're very happy with that. It's very convenient. Why would we even want to leave? Well, what are the things? What does the Father need to do so that his people are ready to leave? And there have to be different things that he will leverage to cause us to become uncomfortable, to say, this home is only temporary. I need to get to where he's calling me. And so and when we look at what happened in the last 4 years, and then all of a sudden it's happened in January and February, it seems like, has there been an acceleration? Even look at in the year 2020, was there an acceleration that we went from living one way, then all of a sudden here we are locked up in our homes where we have restrictions, constrictions, and distancing and all of that. And now we come to 2021 and it seems like it's going to be even going to escalate.
It has for Texas and all the ones It already has. Baruch Hashem.
Yeah. So
yeah.
So we're looking at it, and we're what, 6 weeks out from, or maybe 5 weeks out from Passover.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's going to happen between now and then? Is this the year of the greater Exodus? You know, some will say, well, we're still waiting for an altar to be built and wait for those, you know, and all of that to take place, or maybe not. You know, we're looking at all of these different elements, and we're also looking at, and that's why I was looking at this morning. I hit the element in regards to these pestilences, so to speak, that are affecting the world, and variants and strains and stuff. But what about, you know, the geological stuff? We had 3 volcanoes blow up in Guatemala just over the weekend. We had Mount Etna over in Italy has had its greatest eruption yesterday, and that's 4 in a week, or in the last several days, and yesterday was the greatest one that they've ever experienced. What's going on? Why is the movement under the earth and on top of the earth greater than it's ever been? We've got all sorts of volcanic action across the west coast of the United States, but it's all around the Ring of Fire.
Yes.
And so whether they're weather disturbances, they're geological in nature, we're having pestilences that are going on. And, you know, these are all the wake up calls, but we're still like, well, that was over there and not where we are. And some people are like, well, I'm right in the middle of this. Like in Texas, some people are like, I wasn't even ready for this. People weren't ready. People don't have store foods. You know, they just think you turn on the tap water and it's there whenever you need it. You know, these are wake up calls. We've been talking about it for years, but they're all happening at the same time. And so we are living something that a year ago we were, you know, things were happening, but even a year ago, we weren't even thinking this.
We didn't have to wear masks. Masks were not mandatory.
Yeah.
We were approaching the great declaration by Trump that, okay, you know, the first declaration, he's going to shut things down. You know, we didn't know what that was coming.
Right.
You know? And this plague that we're now in right now, you know?
Yeah.
We know it just a year ago.
Yeah.
And all rights, I'm looking for 3 special visitors to show up at Passover.
Well, you know, that is something else to be thinking about too. We're told that there will be 2 witnesses. The scriptures tell us about 2 witnesses, and we know that there's 2 witnesses throughout scripture about different things. Some of them are groups and different, however you want to divide it up. But you also have 2 witnesses that are killed, and they lay in the streets for 3 days. So we know that there's 2 individuals are going to show up with a message. And when will they show up? And when they do show up, the world better take heed and of what's going on. Mr. Fealty, you've been sitting there thinking and pondering. I can see it through the screen. What are your thoughts on all this? But you're muted.
You're muted.
Right. Well, we just go down to the ocean every day and make sure it's not frozen, so I can take a swim in the ocean every day. No snow here. So,
do you really swim in the ocean every day, Mark?
No, not every day, but I do from time to time. It's still decent, seriously. It's we should all take do a search for in the last days ... because the Bible expresses it all right there where we're at. So you guys have covered it all. I got nothing to add to it at all.
Well, I'm impressed. Even during the winter time, you can still enjoy the water a little bit.
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely. It's cold. It's cold, but it within 30 seconds you're used to it. You know, wow. It's decent enough, but it's cold.
Yeah.
Come on out. Come on out.
Well, I'm
even in Alaska, they have the polar.
Yeah.
folks that go out there and swim in the water, in January.
Yeah, that's a little different.
I never did that.
My biggest experience of going to the beach as a kid was going into the North Sea and the fjords. Even in the summertime, it was cold, but we did it anyway, and we were just numb for a while. But well, that's interesting. Very interesting. Cool. Sandy, any other thoughts that you want to bring? Nope. All right.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.